What's up guys, it is Chris back with another watch video, and today I have MTM on the channel. I actually featured one of their watches a little while ago. It was a quartz watch that was powered by a second battery as well that actually powered some LED lights that were on the dial. It was a very weird, very tactical watch, and this is an automatic version of one of their watches, and again, a very tactical watch inspired by the US Navy's Virginia class attack subs. It's made in all grade 5 titanium, and obviously it is DLC coated, so not PVD coated, DLC coated throughout. So the bracelet, the case, the bezel, the case back, everything is DLC coated. And it is a really robust, very large watch. I'm going to get into some of the details. I'll give you some of the dimensions. They say this is a 45 millimeter watch. I kind of measure a couple of different measurements on this watch. I do measure 45 millimeters if you measure from here to the center of the case on this side. However, if you measure it with this little case protector on this side and the crown protector on this side, it's more like 46.6 millimeters. And then if you measure from this crown protector to the actual crown that is on this side, this crown, it's really not a crown. It's actually, I believe, the helium escape valve. If you measure from there to there, it is almost 50 millimeters. So it is large. And definitely has a very big wrist presence, and that is also because it's very thick. You do get 500 meters of water resistance. Obviously, it is inspired by an attack submarine, so water resistance probably pretty important. You do get a display case back with that, but it's almost 17 millimeters thick, which is very, very thick. And I think the biggest proportion on here is the lug-to-lug. The lug-to-lug without the bracelet is at around 54 millimeters, but it's a whopping 63.7 millimeters if you include the actual end link. So you get a male end link, but it doesn't actually go straight down from that last male end link. It actually still bows out a little bit more, so it is a very, very big lug-to-lug. The crown is huge on here as well, and it's very nice to operate. Screwed-in crown, of course. It's 9.4 millimeters, one of the largest crowns that I've probably had on the channel. Really nice. And then there is a theme, obviously, here. You have these screws that are actually in the crown. It's in the actual lugs, and then throughout the entire bracelet. So you need an actual Allen key to actually unscrew any of the links, and of course to change the strap. You can put a strap on here. It has a bar that goes through. It's actually really nicely made and very robust. A very technical case, a lot of little screws on it, a lot of little facets and angles. It's finished very nicely. It doesn't feel rough at all. On this side, it's kind of a weird sort of technical look to it as well. Screwed-in crown just sits down in there. It's very knurled and finished very nicely. Very robust. Just feeling it in your hand, even though it's grade 5 titanium, which is obviously a light material, this is not light. It's actually very substantial. Now, one of the very interesting aspects of this watch is the dial, and that is because of the movement that is actually inside of this watch. The movement in here is the 6R20 from Seiko. Yes, so this is a Seiko movement outside of Seiko, and it is not the 4R36 that we're, or the NH35 that we are always used to seeing. So this is actually a completely different class of watch. It's a 6R class, and that's pretty cool. And you could see it from the back. So the buckle here is really also pretty complicated as well. You have a double deployant and then a flip over lock. That flip over lock has a cutout in it, and there's sort of a gear here. Everything is milled. It's really nice and not a sharp edge. It's very, very nicely made, really robust. You could hear it. Very well made. Just a very interesting watch. They paid a lot of attention to the details, and then of course you have that movement. You could see it from the back, a big screwed-in case back, and you could see the 6R20. Very, very cool. Now the 6R20, you get a power reserve there above the 9 o'clock, and you could just wind this. It is an automatic, but unscrew the crown, wind it up, and you'll see the actual power reserve start increasing there, which is great. So when you actually wind the watch, you can see it increasing there, and then you get a date, and then you get a day. And that is all controlled through the crown. Pretty cool. Very big crown, very easy to operate. Now, there is one detail on the dial that you have to really like. If you like it or not, it's completely up to the person purchasing it. It is weird. That is that big gray stripe down the middle. It is kind of funky, and either you love it or you hate it. I believe they make other versions of this watch in silver, so a non-DLC coded version. Also, there is, at that 9 o'clock, that power reserve has sort of a shroud over it. There's screws. There's a lot. There's a lot going on the dial. There's a lot going on in the case. There's a lot going on in the bracelet, even down to the buckle, the case back. It's very, very busy, very tactical looking, so you need to really like that. If you don't, obviously you're not going to like this watch. The sword hands match that gray stripe. You do have lume on the sword hands, and then you have tritium tubes in the indices and on the sword hands. Now, that is where this watch is going to be a little bit different from a lot of other watches out there. Tritium tubes, obviously, I think these are T25. If I am wrong, I will put a comment in the description below. However, you're not going to get bright lume from this. It's going to be something that will last a very long time. It doesn't need to be charged by sunlight or any light at all. So when the lights go out, you will get a dim glow from these. It will not be like BGW9 or X1C1 Super Luminova. It's not going to be bright, although you do get some of that on here on the hands only. You do not get that very beautiful bright glow, but it does last a long time, and it will last for 25 years, and it will always be glowing. Right now they are glowing. However, obviously the lights are on, so you cannot see them. That's just basically it. So really quickly, I'm going to throw it on my wrist. I have a 7.5 inch wrist. This is a 45, 46 millimeter watch, depending on how you measure it. I have a 7.5 inch wrist. We'll take a look at this on my wrist, and we'll talk about price. Before we do, let's look at the watch that I have on my wrist today. Today, I have the Christopher Ward C60 Sapphire in blue. And this is just a really beautiful watch. For just under $1,000, you get a Sleet SW200. 600 meter dive watch, really beautiful. On a bracelet, I think it's a little bit over $1,000, and you get to see the movement from the back, and it has that blue tinted sapphire. It's tinted with an actual disc of basically plastic, but just a really cool watch, very special, interesting watch. And here is the MTM on my wrist. It is basically sized for my wrist. I could probably take out one link. There is not a lot of micro adjust on here, and there really isn't half links either, so I would have to take out a full link, and I'm not sure I would get a very good size on here. Now, the micro adjust that you do get here is only one position, so about 1 millimeter of micro adjust. So this is as close as I was able to get it. It is a little bit loose on me. If I go one more link out, it would be a little bit tight on me. So keep that in mind. It is a little bit on the difficult side to actually size. It is a large watch. Look at that on my 7.5 inch wrist. It wears big. It sits high. Look how high it sits. It's basically a 17 millimeter thick watch, 46 millimeter diameter, and then that lug to lug is actually big on my wrist. And this is one of the first watches that I've ever had on the channel which is actually big on my wrist. You know, it's almost a 60 something millimeter. I think it was 63 millimeters, and then it's 50 something millimeters if you actually look at the true lug to lug, 54.3. So it wears very large. If you do not like large watches, this is definitely not the watch for you. Besides the size and that stripe down the middle, those are my basic two, I guess, qualms about this watch. I would have to say it is the price. So let's talk about price here. It is $2,950. For something with a 6R movement, you can get a watch from Seiko with a 6R movement for well under $1,000. I think this is pretty expensive for what you're getting. Even though it's grade 5 titanium and it's DLC coated and it's 500 meters of water resistance, this is expensive. You can get Swiss made watches that are 600 meters water resistance for under $1,000 or around $1,000. They won't be grade 5 titanium and they won't have this look. So this is a very technical looking watch, and if you're into that, obviously this is a really different watch, and you're not going to be able to find one with an automatic movement like this in it, a 6R movement. Very special. Not an incredibly expensive movement, but Just rare that it's in a watch that is not a Seiko. And you also get tritium tubes on here, which is also a little bit of a special feature. Let's listen to the bezel action, then we're going to do a lume shot and then wrap up the video. The bezel action on here is actually pretty good, even though it is grade 5 titanium. Usually titanium, not that good. However, it is DLC coated. That will help. So let's listen. So very loud and feels really good. Sits perfect, really no movement. Very nice bezel action on here. There's a lot of nice details to this watch. I don't know how good it would work as a dive watch because it's so dark and that bezel is dark, so timing is going to be a little bit difficult if you want to time in the dark. Let's do a lume shot so you guys can see what this looks like in the dark, and then we'll wrap up the video. Well, there you have it. You can see I just charged the hands. Really can't really charge the actual tritium tubes, so you could see this isn't very bright. Those tritium tubes will last. There's a big gap over here where the actual power reserve is. The hands are not liberally applied with lume. They're already fading, and usually if they are liberally applied, it won't fade immediately. This is fading immediately. What will remain is the actual tritium tubes in the center of those hands. The second hand is not lumed. Again, I think that's a missed sort of opportunity there. And then there is no lume and no tritium in the actual bezel. So real serious diving, if you want to actually dive with this watch, you're not going to be able to do that because legibility under the water in dark situations, you're not going to be able to actually use the timing bezel because it is so dark and there is no lume. There's no pip to give you orientation either, so kind of disappointing on the lume front. I would have liked to see something lumed in the dial, in the bezel, excuse me, and then I would have liked to see brighter lume on the hands and maybe some BGW9 somewhere else on the dial to help it out a little bit. That would have been nice, especially considering the price at $3,000. This is an expensive watch. There are a lot of watches out there that you can get. The competition is thick at that price range. And you get a lot of cool watches at that price range. So it's something to be considered. If you like the look of this watch, there's not much out there, especially if you want something with an automatic movement. So there's obviously a give and take. It is grade 5 titanium. You're getting the tritium tubes. You're getting an automatic movement. It is made by Seiko, so it's going to be extremely reliable. Sapphire crystal on both sides. DLC coating, which is great. Really bespoke buckle, not a lot of micro adjusts, so a lot to consider with that $3,000 price tag. Anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in